Where I live, I never seen a blended group of people like that unless you go to Starbucks. The polling stations felt like a Starbucks queue.
Yeah.
Mixed. Everyone wearing their K-Way jacket. Everyone was nicely joking and having fun.
And the one force, and I say this because EFF, a lot of us expected it to do well because we see it. We see it on the ground. It's relatable. When your boss calls you the K word, they're the first ones to pick it outside that building and, try to get that social justice for the layman. And you'd think that win the heart of the people.
Yeah, but so
where does it go wrong?
If there is anyone that we owe a thank you to, all of us, is MK. Because all of these dynamics, the story of the elections of 2024 is one line.
To say, you'll know your place. I'll tell you where you can stay. I'll tell you that you must come and collect your money from the government, and you don't make up your mind, I'll make up your mind for you.
Which political party do we trust to be placed in which department?
If you earn anything more than 10,000 in South Africa, you are part of the top 20% of earners.
Yeah, it's quite ridiculous.
Imagine.
Right? If you earn anything like that, 40,000, you are in the top 5%.
That's incredible.
Right?
But it's believable.
It's 100%, and now they've actually got scientific data to say.
I don't think there's too many countries that you wouldn't find.
Yeah. But in South Africa, there's a weirdness. But also, there's a weirdness not in the negative things, but in the things that are actually positive. So, for instance, some of the stuff that we as a nation state put out there, for instance, for tourism, like we've got the beach, the berg, the whatnot, the things that we say, South Africans don't even see them. But when you ask people from anywhere else in the world, they're like, South Africa, oh, that's so awesome. You guys have got mountains, you've got oceans. They list the things where we're like,
good about us, yeah.
Type of thing. So it's really crazy.
But I think I always look at how corruption, for example, and COVID are interlinked in this country. I think it was the beginning of spreading of misinformation in our society through social media.
And it's not gone away.
Yeah, we had all the time in the world to sit and look at our phones and imagine how horrible life was. And people who had no access to internet actually fared better during COVID than people who did.
Yeah.
In the township, things were normal.
Yeah.
Who was quarantining in the township?
They're pretty chill. In fact,
until the soldiers came.
But then after, when they left,
we went back to what we were doing.
Yeah.
Sanbonani, welcome to it. Yes, I'm hosting today. There's no Enda. What do you mean? Yeah, man. Shout out to MacG. He's already gone, so we're off to the US. He's gone, took a flight. Says Ash, the guy who just came back from Brazil. Yeah, he's taking a flight. So yeah, this is it, man. This is the elections roundtable session 2, if I may call it. Earlier on, MacG had one. 2 panelists from that one are back, and they're here to my left. Let me welcome them. Zimasa, Mustafa. Some of us know him as Ongama. Socio-economic commentator. He was very specific about that. And then, I don't want to misrepresent people here.
Especially in this climate.
Yeah, no, not in this climate, Chief. And then to the left of him, it's Mike Sham, podcaster, entrepreneur, podcaster of State of the Nation. Yeah. Check out his podcast on YouTube. To my right, it's people who are aspiring politicians. I don't know if they still are. We'll start off with Eugene. You were meant to be in Parliament, Chief. You are here now on panel.
We thought you would rise.
Yeah, I realized I love my life.
Eugene Khoza, comedian, very opinionated guy. You guys, he's no stranger to the podcast. And then to his right, it's Ntateyan Moganwa. Yeah. He's the leader of Citizens, a platform that seeks to
encourage mainly professionals and the youth to be a lot more involved in terms of what's happening in South Africa.
Yeah.
This is the first time someone introduces me as Ntate, by the way. So. Thank you. Thank you so much. This is in the family, man.
Own it.
This is in the family.
It's downhill from
It
here.
started from grade 11, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Batufuzile, yeah, it's one of those,
Yeah.
right?
Just wait until those Afrikaans kids start calling you
Gentlemen, 29th was a historic day, 29th of May. We all went out. Hopefully, I know the stains are gone now. We all went and voted. We'll start with what were you expecting versus reality and your personal feelings around where we are today and the results. Zimasa?
Shocked, obviously, at the impact of MK Party. But I think when in the first episode, Mike and everybody kind of agreed. We thought that the impact of EMK would predominantly be in KZN. We did not think that it would be in Zulu-speaking areas along the belt that starts in KZN, almost curves into Mpumalanga and comes to Jozi. That was quite interesting because if you look where they got the support, even getting 10% in Jozi, a lot of it came from the Zulu-speaking areas. So it was not a regional party. It was more of a language-based association around the party. And that sort of feeling around the people who were speaking a language that people could understand, I guess. They could articulate a lot of what they wanted a little bit better. And then obviously there was the protest vote from the ANC that moved to MK. And some of the people that didn't have a home in the EFF or felt that the EFF was not too far left enough or wasn't serving them enough, that then suddenly went to go find a home. And Julius explained this quite well. He said, look, there were people who were just here renting space, but then they've now gone and found their home in MKP, specifically in a province like KZN. So I think those were the shocks. I don't want to go too far into it because I want everybody to kind of jump in as well.
From my side, the big argument became, and certainly JJ and I got into it on his show and on this show, was whether to believe the polls that were coming out.
Yeah.
And he refused to believe the polls, and I did believe the polls. And the polls got it spot on except for MK.
Yeah.
But they got MK is a big deal and it made a big impact. But the big question, if we recall, was, would the ANC slip below 50%? And I said they would slip well below 50%. And then I also got a lot of comments about, 3/4 of the comments were hate comments about the fact that I thought that the EFF would actually not grow, that they would actually shrink, and that happened. I thought that MK would have...
Did you get an apology?
No, there's no apology.
Never!
Yeah. We did. I don't think anybody quite got the extent of MK's impact, but we did. Certainly, we thought that it would go to other places, maybe some of these new parties or something. But it ended up the way it ended up. But on the big issues, as they were, the three biggest parties got those right. Yeah. So even the DA staying where it is, which I know everybody's saying it's a good result, but in a bad climate, they stayed where they were.
True. Eugene, what were your expectations versus these outcomes?
My expectations were exactly what's happening now. To people that I speak to, I said this is going to be an election of classes. The middle class versus the lower class. It's as simple as that. Is the middle class willing to protect what they have? Their nice neighborhoods, their cushy jobs, their freestyle ways of making money, their nice cars and their plush neighborhoods, them riding their 350,000 rand bicycles in 4 ways. Are they willing to protect that, yes or no? And if they are, they will come out to vote. Yeah. And the poor, if they really want to be living like the middle class are living, they're going to go out and vote, right? And that's exactly what happened. Where I live, I never seen a blended group of people like that unless you go to Starbucks. The polling stations felt like a Starbucks queue. Yeah. Mixed. Everyone wearing their K-Way jacket. Everyone was nicely joking and having fun. Without having actively campaigning in the queues. Yeah. We could already have telepathic conversations about who we wanted to keep this like this. We all agreed. Black, white, young and old in that queue. We all agreed we wanted to keep it like this. And I can tell you now, the same conversations were happening elsewhere. But now you see the results. Government of National Unity, the ANC of the people who want things to be done right versus the DA who want to prove that they can do right are now working together. It's exactly explained in all the malls, in all the coffee shops, in all the restaurants, in all the dealership conversation, the golf course conversations. That's what this result is. And finally, it's going to come to fruition. And I'm happy about it. I'm looking forward to the next 5 years.
Jan?
Of 4 ways.
Sol, I don't want to brag, eh? I really don't want to brag.
I saw, before you go on, I saw a podcast where you said 68%, I believe.
65%.
65% for the ANC.
Yes.
You predicted.
So actually, ANC is still at 65%.
You're right.
Yeah, it's
Right?
Yes.
It has
He's
not
right.
moved.
Yeah, it's right.
So if you add ANC plus
MK.
MK plus EFF,
Yeah.
nothing has moved.
Crazy, right?
South Africa has not changed. All that has changed is the games
The
inside the
factions.
ANC.
And the
I mean, think
factions,
about it. Think about how does a leading party drop 17%?
That's massive.
None of it goes to the main opposition.
Yeah.
None of it.
True.
Guys, South Africa has not changed. If there is anyone that we owe a thank you to, all of us, is MK. Because all of these dynamics, the story of the elections of 2024 is one line, MK.
True.
But I called the 15%. I called it on MacG show. Now you can go check it out. On MacG show,
Yeah.
I said MK 15%. On Sizwe's show, I said MK 15%.
Crazy.
On David's show, I said MK 15%. Why? Simply because people are emotional. You have had ANC coming out, or EFF coming out of ANC. First elections, they came out just over 5%. They were not at the top of the house inside the ANC. They were in the youth league.
Yeah.
They come out at 5%. Cope comes out. We kind of like think Beggy's behind it, but he doesn't come out and say, I'm behind it. Cope goes to elections without policy, having gone to elective conference policy. Where do they come up? 7%.
Yeah.
That's well. Yeah.
Now, you have a party that comes out of a president that openly says, this is my party. But South Africans expect it to perform worse than Cope and worse than EFF when it came out. That's superstition, man. No, that's just people are emotional.
Yes.
Yeah, true.
There was no way Zuma, who's so popular, who has been sent to KZN so many times, ANC has never won KZN without sending Zuma. Never. But somehow South Africans expect them to come out lower than EFF. Come on, guys.
No, I beg to differ. I think, and I agree with you as well. I don't think South Africa, and I'm speaking to about South Africans that are not too clued up in politics, of Jacob Zuma, for example, that know the history of how we end up being co-opted as the guy who campaigns for the ANC in KZN. I'm speaking for everyone who lives far away from that dynamic. People did not expect him, and obviously that happened, to win the elections.
Yes.
You see, getting a high number, that's an educated guess, a guesstimate, and you were spot on.
Yeah.
But the average person did not expect him to win.
Yeah.
So as much as the ANC is said to be declining or the EFF is declining, he was not going. In people's minds, he hasn't won.
Yes.
So he has won to political scholars and to people inside the ANC.
I just want to add something quite interesting. What really came out to me this week, and I other than maybe creating one video where I looked at the immediacy of the elections just after, I've really just kept quiet and just looked and watched and observed. Yes, I've observed.
Yes.
What came out was I saw a post by somebody who's an MK supporter who says, Zuma failed us. He failed us because we gave him a mandate. And instead of him using that mandate we've given him to leverage for what we
want,
he then leveraged the mandate for himself. And through that, he then collapsed this entire block of people who have voted for him, thus nullifying our impact. Because we didn't get an outright majority in KZN, right? But we did so well. So if he was one of the first people to start saying, we are going to negotiate to get into power immediately, they could have easily said, IFP, we're together.
Yeah, easily.
Yeah, but it's not true, because EFF was one of the ones that very quickly said we accept the results and we are preparing to be ministers.
Yeah, but what we've learned is
enough.
what they do are two
Are two
different
different things, right? So out of that, there's a huge number of people who, as has been plainly put here, who didn't want more of the same from the same guys, but they wanted a different path in terms of execution.
Absolutely.
Right? And they mandated to MK that we are giving you this mandate, just as people gave to the EFF, right? We're giving you this mandate for you to champion leftist views within the greater discourse of South Africa. By you not negotiating to get into positions that actually allow you to turn the levers towards the left, you have actually taken our vote and thrown it to the wind. Because they didn't negotiate. Everything that's coming out of how did you negotiate is actually coming out into saying these guys didn't want to. MK didn't have a negotiation team that didn't have to say Sfonele Ubaba, Sfonele Ubaba. That EFF came out and said we want to negotiate. Then they said we don't want to. We don't want to govern with white people. Well, it became clear from them.
EFF said they are preparing to go to government. You know, where I strongly differ, there was no negotiation with MK. There was not even prospects of negotiation with MK. So we tried to articulate this before elections. Once ANC drops below 50, you are going to have this split between what leaders of the ANC want and what the followers of the ANC want. The followers of the ANC are very much leftists, right? But the problem, if you are a Mbalula or a Lamola and all of that, and you embrace anything that brings Julius and Zuma back in the fold, you are dead.
But Jan,
there was never genuine appetite by the ANC to ever negotiate with MK and EFF. You will choose DA. Why? Who's posing a challenge to Mbalula in this dynamic? No one, in terms of his aspirations. Imagine bringing Julius and Floyd and whoever Zuma brings in the fold. You are dead, right? So we are seeing, the classical case, Saul, earlier you were saying the influencer of business. There's a classical case of principal agent issue. This whole idea that is management making decisions that are in the best interest of shareholders. I think we are seeing that classical case now. The leaders of the ANC are making decisions for themselves.
That's true,
The issue they fear is a revolt from the members. That's what they have to manage. They don't have to worry about managing the rest of us. I agree with you. The rest of us, comfortable life and all of that. I fear, how are they going to explain this?
On the ground.
On the ground.
Yeah, because a lot of people on the ground are unhappy.
I think we're missing one thing. Yeah, to me, it's a very important thing. And that is, I said on the show, Mustafa, the last time, I said, this isn't the beginning of the end for South Africa. This is the end of the beginning. Right? And to me, what was unnatural from the start, this goes way back because Tata, I was around, right? And what was quite unnatural was what the ANC was, which was this broadest of broad churches, where it had communists, trade unionists, and at that point, budding business people that have now become proper capitalists. So at some point, the party had to become one thing or another. It couldn't be this broad church, right? Because even when things were good and the country was growing in the Becky years, the leftists wanted to pull it down, and they did. And the trade unionists weren't happy that the capitalists were getting rich. They had no right being in the same tent. And I want to just challenge one thing that you said, Jan. You said that they got 65%, and I understand your logic. But I think it's time for us to understand that no one's getting the band back together again, right? Because I do not see that happening. Give me one example anywhere in the world, especially South Africa, where a breakaway from a political party has rejoined the political party. I've never seen one case of it, right? It's not to say that the voters might not move, but I'm saying that a split is a split. And once it splits, I become the leader. I now don't have to listen to you. And then I don't want to answer.
Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's Game of Thrones. I start my own tribe. I've got my own colors, my own flag. It's you started your own business.
Absolutely.
Right? So I've got I don't
absolutely,
see that ever getting back together again. And to call it 65%, technically you're right. Practically you're horribly wrong.
But let me tell you why I think so. Because these things, when you have negotiations, the issue is how far are you from each other, right? So, for example, I was not shocked to see that Action SA is part of the Moonshot Pact. there is no surprise there, right? You can argue that that's a separate party, but that breakaway from DA was willing to go back into the fold, whether that fold is called DA or whatever, right? But those people are not far from each other.
Yeah, but Jan,
right? The same thing.
That proves the point, because they did nothing but have a go at the DA the whole time.
No, but that's a
And
strategy.
they would never go back to the
I was
DA.
answering you on can people come together, right? I'm showing you that people can. And if you look at the EFF guys are very close with the Panyazas and all of that. So a level down from right, a level down from the top 6. There is a lot of alignment.
Yeah,
even policy.
But you know, this is where I was saying there has not been any negotiation. There is one character that is missing in this conversation: big business. I can tell you that there is an invisible hand that we don't talk enough about.
it showed itself
But
yesterday.
I don't think it's
Right.
invisible.
It's not invisible.
Who's it invisible to?
Maybe to the layman.
Maybe to the layman. Guys, in South Africa, we have a history of a minister of finance appointed by a president, and that was a minister for a weekend in a democratic country. And no one is asking the question, under what circumstances? Who reverses a decision of a president of a democratic South Africa? We moved on.
So I want to answer you quite nicely. We saw the invisible hand, I guess, for everybody who thinks the hand is invisible yesterday.
Yes.
Right? Breakaway day for the JSE.
Absolutely.
There was
Green
not a single stock that was in the red.
Absolutely.
If it was, close that business down.
Absolutely.
But it showed that generally nobody. I've always understood that negotiation is a point where you do feel like I'm being screwed over, but not to a point where I feel like I'm walking away, and the other person mustn't feel like they've won the whole entire thing.
Yes.
So everybody kind of felt I didn't win enough for me to feel like I've won, nor did I lose enough for me to feel like I'm a loser. And in that case, we have to work together.
Absolutely.
And that's where we are now.
I just don't think there was any negotiations, genuine negotiations with MK and
But that was also because MK didn't. They flat out said, we don't want to negotiate, and these are our terms. Like, you've got to remove your president. And they're also like, no, bro, we don't come in and tell you who should be your guy.
Yeah.
And that's also, those sometimes are things that as people who analyze and are always reading about this stuff, we take for granted.
Yeah.
But those are simple things. You can't
I
come
think
into
those are
someone's house
diversions.
and say, your father can't be your father anymore.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if ANC said to MK, we'll negotiate with you if you get rid of Jacob Zuma?
No,
Exactly.
I don't think anyone would have gone into negotiations on that. These are postures, right? Guys, these people are playing us. They are coming and quoting each other on postures, but those are different to what happens in the negotiations.
So that's the thing where I think defined this election.
Yeah.
30 years later. It was no different from the elections of 1994. It was the elections of personalities as well.
Absolutely.
It was F.W. de Klerk versus Nelson Mandela.
I disagree.
How?
I disagree because I don't think the personalities are that strong now.
Hold on. So right now, the things that John Steenhuisen said rubbed people off the wrong way.
Yes.
People who were even thinking of voting for the DA.
Yes.
People
Agreed.
that are against Jacob Zuma, when they saw his posture and what he was saying about the ANC and ultimately not letting his party members go to parliament and get sworn in, were showing off his personality.
Weird, right?
Showing off his personality, right? The way Julius became so humble after the results were announced, and obviously we didn't know if he was going to fight or if he was not, if he was negotiating or if he was backing down or doubling down. We didn't know, right? But then Cyril Ramaphosa came out stately. He said, guys...
Yeah, but that's after the event.
No, I'm saying just in general. I'm saying for the person looking from the outside. Remember that for us, normal people who vote, who don't know anything about politics that much, it's only real until the person gets inaugurated.
It became real today.
That's what I'm saying. So the average person was looking at these people's personalities. There are a lot of people on social media who are coming after, for example, Julius going, where's the mouth now? You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who are saying, Musima Imani. Oh, so you were starving for 5 years. Now that you're eating, you're back in the mix again. Because there was 5 years of being in the desert. There was that. So do you understand? There was a lot of personality politics happening. But to the average person, they had to pick who they were voting for based on what they were behaving like.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cyril was a steady compass for all of us. Whether we like it or not, if we can look at all the personalities that I've mentioned, Cyril just looked like a steady ship. To a point where if we can all argue at a bar at Tiger's Milk, we can all agree at one thing.
Yeah.
Out of the 5 people that I've counted, who would you rather lead the country?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I wanted to.
But he was the biggest loser.
But even though he lost because the country wanted him to be more accountable and to actually execute things, we still were like, Mara, the other gents.
That's what
and that I agree with. I mean,
the other gents. Those other guys.
You see?
That I agree with. It's the same thing as under COVID, right? That I agree with. When the moment is, when the moment comes, he just seems to show up and be presidential.
Because on the other end, you had someone saying, I don't want to deal with you. Yeah. And you had him going, Mina, if you want to talk, I'm here. Oh, come on, guys.
Mike, you mentioned the biggest losers. And for me, EFF is one of the biggest losers, right? Where did they get it wrong?
Yeah.
No. These are the numbers.
Give it to Mike. Mike, where did they get it wrong?
And we can speak about all the other, losers. But, I mean, it's no point of talking about Rise and all those guys. We wouldn't expect them to make a dent. We didn't expect them to make a dent.
JJ would call them rats and mice.
JJ.
In his
all the rats and mice. We know the word.
He also called MK rats and mice. Is that 1 or 2 seats?
All those other guys look like they were there to divide a particular vote, the black vote, right? And the one force, and I say this because EFF, a lot of us expected it to do well because we see it. We see it on the ground. It's relatable. When your boss calls you the K word, they're the first ones to pick it outside that building and, try to get that social justice for the layman. And you think that win the heart of the people. Where does it go wrong?
How many times do we dance to a song and have challenges, but it doesn't reflect on the sales of the song? How many times do we like a song? There's dance challenges, but then you look at the Spotify.
But it's a dance challenge. They are addressing...
Yeah, but I'm talking about popularity on the ground. It doesn't necessarily result in numbers.
It's not like a dance challenge or a fad.
No, 800%.
They're addressing real issues.
No, when you're out there throwing outside the clicks, a dance challenge. It's going to pass.
Okay.
Exactly.
Where did they go wrong? And how did because I saw a glimpse of a new approach, especially when they accepted the results, because you'd expect them to be the first guys to get on top of that.
That was not a glimpse of a new approach. Nothing.
Don't
glimpse of a new approach.
Don't be confused. So it was to say hello, guys, pick us.
True, but also I don't think they'll maintain the same posture based on the results, because you can't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. So where did they go wrong, and how do they rebuild? How do they rebuild?
I do want this one because I've said
Mike loves the EFF.
Shame, man. I think they're necessary. I think that the EFF is like the valve on a pressure cooker.
Right.
If you don't have that thing, the thing's going to blow up.
Right.
So let those people go there, be the 8% party in time, and they can sit there for the rest of their lives. Julius will still be the leader in 20 years. He even said it. So, but at least those people won't be... He won't be influencing national policy. I've made this point, and I shouldn't be making this point because I've got to be careful when I do it. I don't see black aspirations being reflected in the EFF. Right? I don't. I see people being very entrepreneurial, wanting to carve their own way in the world, be entrepreneurial, not listen to the commander-in-chief, not tell you what to wear, not tell you that you can't own land. I see the aspiration. In fact, when I see that, I see the embodiment of what the apartheid government tried to do. To say, you'll know your place. I'll tell you where you can stay. I'll tell you that you must come and collect your money from the government, and you don't make up your mind, I'll make up your mind for you. That's what I hear when I hear the EFF, right? I'd say that, and I've taken a lot of heat for that, but I'll say that I think that there is a limit to how popular that line is in this country, 100%. Right? And, to me, that was the problem that I had, because I don't see that reflected in our population. I see smart people who are entrepreneurial and have got big, big aspirations. Yeah, you got a party that's got to call you a fighter, and you've got to wear red, and you've got to wear a beret, and you've got to do this. Please don't tell me what to wear, right? So I see it as being 1960s politics, it's not going to bite in the 21st century. That was my view from a political point of view. They were a sideshow, the flip-flopping. Eventually, South Africa's in a place where all of us have felt it. We've had a bad couple of years.
Yeah, we did.
And people want to get back to work. They want to start making money. They want to. We don't want to sit and have these same fights over and over again. Yeah. Eventually, you want somebody that looks forward and not looks back.
Yeah.
And I didn't see that reflected. And that's why I thought, even before MK came on the scene, that I thought that their policy message and the constant disruptions and this and that were sideshows that weren't really going to give them significant growth. And that's where, long before the MK came along, and this whole thing was being flouted that they're going to be the official opposition, I never saw that happening.
Yeah. So I want to actually say something. It's almost like it's the Cyril conversation we just had now, where we say, who did we see outside of him taking over? And that kind of scared people, because I may disagree with the Lesetja Kganyago, right? But I don't know if I want to put anyone in right now. I don't want another person. Yes. Like, I know his track record. I may disagree with how, and at times how we're keeping rates the same. We're going to change. We're going to tweak. The economy is running hot. It's running. Like, I may disagree on certain things because I'm an advocate for small businesses, right? And I worry about how things he does affect small businesses. But at least I can argue with that guy. Yes. I don't know who's another guy that they're going to bring in. Because also, I think, was it Kuben Pillay? He also left. And there were a couple of guys in our finance cluster. A lot of guys who started moving out just before elections. And I got freaked out. I was like, it doesn't really matter what happens next, but you need your finance cluster, from your finance minister to your governor of your reserve bank to national treasury, right? And everything in between, and SARS. You need those things working so that we can, the rest we can figure out as we go along. So for me, I felt that I knew what I was going to get economically from the ANC, right? It was either going to be more of the same, or we're going to move positively. The other guys, I didn't know economically what I was going to get. Yeah. And that was the scary thing about it for a lot of people, is to say
no
to you,
promising anyone anything.
What if you, so if the ANC is telling me, we've built the policies, we're just terrible at implementing them, but if we implemented them properly, we could cook, gents. I'm like, okay, the needle stays the same, or it goes there. Yeah. But if somebody else comes in and says, I want to kind of change the economic thing, and I go, but we can't change the rules because we are part players in a global game. Yes. We can't be the only ones that say, Tina, so and want to wear different kit.
Overnight.
A different game. But you still want to play in the global game.
Overnight.
That changes things, because I worry that the conversation that was never had during these elections is the economy. Actual, tangible things that we are going to do to move the economy from stagnation, where it is now, to get it singing.
But I think it was a trump card of all the parties that knew that they didn't stand a chance of dethroning the ANC, to make it look like there was an invincible hand of business trying to control things. The conversation has always been there.
Business is important.
Yeah, it's always been there.
Business is important.
It was never a mystery.
But the one thing you've got to just acknowledge is who is business? Business is us.
It's us.
It's us. Yeah. It's everybody. And I'm telling you,
if you are not consulted on policy, right? There's the rest of us, right? So there are people who were consulted before any policy is signed off, guys, to say, what's your view on this thing? Not everyone is business.
But they don't have your address, Agir.
No, they have my... But let's go back to the EFF thing. Yes. I got the EFF wrong. I might have got MK right. Yeah. But maybe, again, that's also me. I still wanted EFF to get some growth. You see, the way we are talking, I'll tell you now. We are talking about all of these options as if we were choosing a president among them, right? I don't think that's how we need to be thinking about it. The way I think we need to be thinking about it is there's going to be a leading party, and there are certain parties that we need for specific noise. You understand?
To champion the
views. To champion that, yes. Yeah. I think there's a lot of people who are voting the EFF, not because they want EFF to be the government, but because you are raising the important issues that no one else is raising, right? So the reason I still wanted EFF to have a bigger voice, now my view was that they will get to 15%, but they will start to decline. Why? The politics of fear are difficult to sustain.
And maintain.
Yeah. Right? But what worries me now, with a muted EFF is I want to see where the conversation on transformation is going. I want to see where the conversation on land is going. I want to see where the conversation of changing the makeup of corporate South Africa is going.
Yeah.
Because we need someone with a strong voice, not to become government, but to continue to challenge, to bring those things up.
Or you don't achieve that by fighting. You achieve that by talking.
It's agitation.
I felt like there's another missed opportunity on mandate given to the EFF to actually get into a position to enact and show us that they have grown and they're a party that can lead. Whether it's a portfolio, whether it's something. This is a missed opportunity.
But they said
yes.
They said, we are willing to talk.
But then they didn't.
Conditions.
That was immediate. That's the twerking that you guys are talking about.
Because you're falling for the trap.
With 9%.
It's games.
With 9%, they are a big enough block to come back into the ANC to say, we would like the things we've been championing, talking about land, etc. We would like to get an opportunity and a shot to actually take this thing and disperse the land.
Guys,
that is a missed opportunity.
Guys.
Because if the majority was there in the way that they are saying it is there, they would have gone to the table and said, we are 10 years old and we feel now that we should get something to show our people that your voice will exist in government.
Gents, they tried. I'm telling you. Trust me. No, let me tell you. The first party to come out of the block and say we are accepting
as
elections.
Long as Floyd's a finance minister.
No.
That's negotiating.
No. That was the rhetoric before. We are Julius even clarified. People are going to be asking me about Cyril and whatever. Guys, Cyril is the president of the ANC. Don't put me into all of that mix, right? I'm telling you, this is all diversion. One day, the real story is going to come out.
The real story?
The real story is the current leaders of the ANC don't want any of these people back close to the fold.
Why?
Because they pose a real challenge of the leadership in terms of succession. Remember, when you look at the top 6 today, you must say who are the next people. So think about it. Give me 6 names of the next people who are going to come in. You are starting to scrap the bottom of the barrel. There are good guys like David Makura, but he's not going to come up. Why? He's not a rabble-rouser. He's not the type of guy who gets the crowd excited. It will be suicidal if you've got big aspirations and you are Ronald Lamula and all of that. And you bring Floyd and Julius close. You will be mad.
But the other side of it is that when you have them in a portfolio that is not necessarily a portfolio that changes things other than executes things.
They must give them land. Yeah.
Then you've got all of the things that you've been saying, right? We give you the opportunity to do exactly what you said. There's government land. It needs to be dispersed. Here are the frameworks. Nobody can change the rules, right? Because nobody has a majority. Yeah. Do what you have been preaching about.
Yeah.
And because
they didn't want
this is a lost opportunity for them.
Never wanted,
and I want people to understand, anybody watching this, this is a lost opportunity for the mandate that has been given to a party like the EFF. And people have been supporting this party for 10 years. Yeah. Can you imagine supporting this? I mean, you can if you're a soccer fan for those teams. But if you have been supporting a team for 10 years, you know, insert team. So if you know that your team you've been supporting for so long, and all you've ever wanted is for them to show you the impact. There's no better place to show your capability than to actually get into office. And this is the scary thing about the EFF as it currently sits. I don't know where they've taken the mayorship or outright and said, we want to be. They kingmaker all the time. We'll give you our thing to get in. This was an opportunity on the largest stage possible to say 1 or 2 portfolios and we will run and we'll show you what we can do when we are running a government department with billions of rands.
We said that until they finally did get close to power in some of these coalitions. And what did they do? Disrupt. Right? And that's what people are seeing. People have seen the mess they've created in Johannesburg, Kureleni, Nelson Mandela, eThekwini, Tshwane, wherever they've been around, and they can't help themselves. So I'm saying, who wants to get close to that?
Speaking of the coalitions, I think we've seen the instabilities of coalitions. How many mayors, have we had? Now, with what we're currently looking at with this government of national unity, for the layman, what's the difference between, because some people are like, well, this is just a coalition with other than smaller parties, right? What's the difference between a coalition and what we currently have? Is this what a government of national unity should be looking like? Where it essentially looks like a party or a marriage between the DA and the ANC, and then there's other smaller parties that will get bullied around. Yeah. Like what we saw in the Moonshot Pact, where the DA was bullying around people, even now.
Okay, so let's first debunk one myth.
Yeah.
Because there's a thing, yes, technically we had a government of national unity after 1994, but practically we didn't. There were a few ministers that were from the old government that were just there to skill transfer. But the ANC knew that they had 65% of the vote. Yeah. So it was sort of like, I'll listen to you, but not really listen to you. Yeah. And that's why it broke down so fast. Now these guys have to work together. This over here, it's going to be more of a collaboration rather than a marriage. That's the aim of a government of national unity. That everybody is there by agreement, not because they have become one. And, you're going to very quickly see who's not playing the game. But what you can see by the composition, and this is where Cyril has been probably at his best, and he's getting the best of his life, because now he gets to be chairman of the board, pitches up every 3 months.
Some of his guys, other guys.
Shits on everybody and then leaves, and that's going to be what he does. He doesn't have to be the CEO. Finally. He can be chairman of the board, right?
Yeah.
For the poor guy, right? Because I think that's the common denominator in South Africa. A lot of people are poor. Is this particular government of national unity, with the parties it has at the moment, going to help those people? Is it going to benefit those people, or is it going to benefit and maintain the status quo, which will see the poorer guy getting poorer?
Let me just kick off on that line, because I think that I've got a different view to the one that my friend Mr. Moganwa over there was espousing earlier. I think that some of the thorny issues in South Africa have got a better chance of being solved now. Things like land, things like transformation. Rather, let's, get in front of it. As spokesman for the whites,
I love that.
We want to sit down, solve these issues. Everybody wants the place to grow. Everybody wants good health care. Everybody wants the same stuff.
Yeah.
If we can help, rather than being demonized and made an enemy and fighting and this, that, and the other. Otherwise, if you start fighting, everybody's just going to go into defensive mode. Yeah. I think we stand our best chance ever of resolving some of these issues because they're critical.
Yeah.
But the way to solve them is probably best like this, rather than say we demand, we're changing the law, we're going to expropriate, whatever.
Also, do you want to jump in?
No, go ahead.
So I want to add and say, what must be understood by the man on the street and the common person is that more will go into their pockets if the economy is working well. This is very important. If you've got the same 100 rand going around the room, that 100 rand doesn't grow. We keep splitting the same 100 rand as South Africa. This is important. The composition of our budget, our current budget, and maybe hopefully not subsequent budgets, but budgets going backwards, have always been that we spent less than 10% on things that could possibly grow our economy. We are very consumptive in our spending as a country. We literally, it's hand to mouth. If we don't change that, it doesn't matter who goes into power. If that is not their main aim, to grow the economy, and I'm not talking like in this whimsical way. I mean, we've got to trade our way out of this thing. We've got to sell things to the rest of the globe. It's not going to make sense. When people say, yeah, but why are they selling coal to this one? We've got to get dollars in. We've got to get euros in. We've got to get pounds in. We've got to get yen in. Yeah. This is the only way, ladies and gentlemen, that South Africa's economic conditions, current economic conditions, can change. It's the only way we can employ more people because there's more money in the economy. This does not change because of policy. It changes because of action.
And also, what I've realized in this country, we're very good at demonizing the middle class.
Yeah.
I'm a big champion of the middle class. The economy and the markets are the middle class.
Yes.
If the middle class are confident, because that's what we need. We worry too much about investor confidence. We are the investors here. The more I buy, the more I spend, the more confidence I have. Exactly. In opening my business, I can hire more people. And we must dispel this myth. There's never going to be this utopia that we live in where the poor are now rich overnight.
It's not going to work.
It's not going to happen.
There is no society.
These guys have been drinking some strong stuff. And guys,
Why do you say that?
Guys, you're falling for the trap, right?
Where's the trap?
Jeez,
Guys,
We've been looking for this
guys,
trap.
Hey,
South Africa, despite all the challenges we have had, has produced more dollar billionaires, right, under democracy than under apartheid, right? So, despite all of these issues we've had, the formula for how value is shared, in the economy is simple. You've got income, you've got cost, you've got profit. The issue is capital willing? How far is capital willing to share the profit? That's the question, right? So the poor person, what we've been seeing in South Africa is the shift of wealth from the poor to the rich. Because if the economy is not growing, right? How do we have so many billionaires? How do we have the all-share index, the JSE index, each reaching highest level?
But
it is because there is a constant shift, right? So I've said this before. The corporate tax in 1993 was more than 50%. The corporate tax today is about 27%. That's a shift of wealth. Instead, the poor people are dealing with we know about black tax. We've been arguing that they are now also dealing with what we call a white tax. And what we call a white tax, it is all of these things that normally your money should have been sufficient to cover, but actually you now have to pay for. Private education, private energy, private water, private road, private this, private this. That's
But
all.
we love our private. All of them.
Shouldn't be paying.
No, I want
You've already paid.
I want to oppose that. I want to
You
oppose
already
that.
paid.
I want to oppose that. We currently sit, and I've got the thing open. This is not me eyeing the things.
Yeah.
So personal income tax revenue, right? 35% of that comes from people working. It's personal income tax, right? 35%. That comes from a base of about no more than 6 million people in South Africa. I stand corrected on the number.
About 7. Yeah.
6 to 7 million.
Yeah.
So 6 to 7 million people out of the 72, I think we have 70 plus million people in the country. Out of the 70 million people, they're the ones personal income tax. So it gets taken every month. 35. You've then got that corporate income tax that comes in at 20%. Yeah. That's 55% coming from people being gainfully employed as a start. Yeah. So if businesses are not working, less people get, this business is not making money, it pays less tax. Those people are unemployed, they pay less tax. Yeah. Half of our tax comes from that. Yes. Then the next 25% comes from VAT, people spending. So if I'm not employed, I'm not going to spend as much on VAT.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now you start to have, then the rest is just taxes of fuel levy and customs and whatever. Yeah. If a country is not trading, we have less customs and excise duties. Yes. So I vehemently reject that conversation because I believe that what we need to do, when you talk about there being favorable conditions for business to thrive, in those first 15 years, South Africa 94 to 2009, the reason why we took that thing down is because the previous government could not survive without those types of taxes. No, wait.
But I'm not disagreeing.
Yes, but I'm trying to make it clear for people watching this that the view you've taken is that because we moved from 50% tax to around 25% actual tax. South Africa, you stack the taxes anyways, right? Where the actual effective tax rate is quite high. It still is around 50 anyways. But what we're saying is that what creates the conditions for a small business to come out and play, to employ the 7, most countries that succeed, they are small businesses that employ between 0 and 1 to 10 people. No more. Most compositions, because those are the businesses that actually run the economy. In South Africa, we are stifling those businesses by creating too much taxation. If you say tax must go up, who is tax going up for as a company or a business? Wait.
No, I'm waiting.
Yes. Then as you come. No, I think it was jumping.
His turn is coming in. Hold on. His turn is coming, yeah?
Yeah. So then you come from that perspective and you say, okay, Sharp, the taxes went down, but the taxes went down in a period where South Africa had a surplus in 2004, 2005, when those taxes were coming down.
Yeah.
So suddenly we had money to invest. Obviously, it was squandered over the next couple of years. We all know that. But what I'm saying to you is that if we were to create the conditions for money to feel like it will make enough profit, that's the balancing act that the guys have to do. They have to say, we've got to tax the absolute maximum before we start to see negative effects. Because the negative effects, if a business feels like that they are stifled from actually gaining decent profit, and decent profit is relative to industries, and a lot of industries are actually well regulated. If a business feels it actually doesn't make sense for us to be in business, they pack up, they leave. Now, what is key for us to understand is that we've got to then get into conversation with business. For the longest time in South Africa, business has been vilified. Small businesses have been squeezed. And I've built a lot of those small businesses myself. I know that there are times in this country where you feel like this tax doesn't make sense. If we're trying to, if I go from 0 to 10 people, the government should be applauding me for what I've done. Instead, I'm heavily taxed.
Can I
to a
respond?
point. Yes, I'm heavily taxed to a point
Can I
where I
respond?
feel, no, I'm about to give it to you now. I'm heavily taxed to a point where I feel like I can't then employ as many people as I possibly can under the same conditions.
I get that.
Because there's too much red tape and in terms of governance. Sharp.
We must be careful that I have a colleague who used to say we must be careful that we don't skin the wrong cat. Right? So for me, I'm not arguing that the biggest benefit is the growing economy. Absolutely no argument there. The question Saul asked, because we must go back to what was the question. The question Saul asked, what does this mean for the poor? And then Mike made a comment that a growing economy creates. This basically is the level of water that lifts, what lifts all the boats.
Rising tide lifts all the boats.
Rising tide lifts all the boats. So there's that, right? And I'm saying the idea of, because that's what in America they used to call the trickle-down economy. The idea that as long as the economy grows, this thing will reach everyone. That is not true. That's what I was answering. Is yes, we want a growing economy, but the idea that let's just free up the economy to do what it needs to do has never worked anywhere in the world. You need to be able to say, in this growing economy, how am I going to protect the poor? And how do I ensure that they benefit? That is what I was answering. And I'm saying we need someone to champion that. One of the richest people, if not the richest people in the world, Elon Musk, one of the things he has been talking about lately?
Basic income.
He's saying the wealth might need basic income. Why? Because he's saying we are talking about AI and automation and all of that, which means a lot of people are going to lose jobs. When jobs are being done by machines, how are we going to protect the people? The richest person in the world is talking about a grant. In South Africa, we bash grants.
Yeah, but that
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why we bash them.
He stole it from Rogan.
So I'll tell you why we bash grants, right?
Yeah.
Because under the current budgeting regime, under the current taxation regime, we don't have any more. There is no more room to move in South Africa. Do you know why people always say South Africa has no money? They don't literally mean we have no money. We have no room to move. That means that we have gone into our overdraft as a country. If we were a household, we've gone so far into our overdraft that even the money we were going to borrow from one credit card to pay another is now finished. So now what it means,
how do we remedy
must
that?
go. First things first, we need to stop the bleed of money that's in the system. There's too much money that's floating around that's not doing what it needs to do. In terms of things like infrastructure, in order for you to build an economy, you first have to build a road. If we're not getting that right, that means if our rail tracks are not working, we cannot move goods. It means we're spending too much money maintaining the N3, maintaining the N4, maintaining the N2 because trucks are on it. We've got to get that right. If we want things to work, we've got to get the train from Soweto into Park Station working so that people are spending less. Then what does that suddenly open to do? People can spend more on the things that can move the economy. That's how we're plugged into a
Well
bigger
said.
system.
Okay.
Yes.
But
South
now-
Africa has money.
We do.
Terribly managed.
Now, with the current government, now I'm assuming this government works its here the way it is for the
new
next
G-
5
the
years.
new GNU.
The new GNU.
We don't know who's going to be in, but sharp, yeah.
The coalition.
Yeah, you call it a
The
coalition.
It's not a GNU.
Yeah.
Who must be placed, and by who I mean from political parties? Which political
I love
parties
this
do we
question.
trust to be placed in which departments?
So I think that
Key departments.
I think that the ANC must still keep the core, right? Because they're centrist, but they've shown that they're terrible at certain portfolios. They've shown. But I believe developmentally, because that's what we are, we're a developmental state. We need them still there because this is a mess they've created. So they must own it. So we don't want them away from portfolios where then they can suddenly say, "Oh, I don't know what happened. You know, we
then
left
the new person
in
can say, "I
2024."
inherited a mess."
Exactly.
like
it
they
becomes
said, they inherited a mess of apartheid, right?
It
And
becomes
was
a political
for
football.
30 years.
So what we
Yeah.
need is the ANC holding certain positions. I want them to lead on foreign policy, right? I want them to lead on foreign policy. I want them to lead even on SOEs because this is what's important around this thing. Nothing can change. The only thing that can change is the execution in those portfolios going forward. This is very key for people. So even if the DA or the IFP or the PA or whoever is in the GNU currently, because it could grow, could get less, if their role is to make things work, that's what we need as a country. That's all we need. But I don't want there to be titanic shifts. That's why I would have appreciated an EFF coming in to do the land policy.
Eugene, what's
Because
your story?
then they
Again, to take on the face. Yeah.
because we do have an issue when it comes to illegal
Let's
immigration.
hear what Eugene wants as
but-
minister.
Yeah.
What?
Who should take what?
First, we must start. Can I go back a little bit?
Sharp.
Guys, let's just all be honest. Whenever I hear political pundits, economists talking about the economy, we must just drill it down to the basic level of things in life.
Yeah.
People who are doing well want to keep doing well.
Yes.
They don't care about those that are not doing well.
Yes.
It will never be our responsibility. People that are not doing well. So I always hear, so how is this going to benefit the...
Especially when you pay tax.
Hey, my man, benefit people on the ground. I'm paying, Wasn't I there in the queue paying there and then you had the job? So what more can I do for you? Because if that were true, people will be paying their domestic workers more, their security guards more, their drivers more. Every time your Uber says 150, you'd say, actually, you deserve 1,500. So it's not true. The rich love getting richer. The middle class love
That's the
keeping
system we're in.
That's why we voted this. If any party is blind to that, then they're living in another planet. Everyone was protecting their wealth because we just came from a hammering of people losing their businesses or people losing their houses from marriages. So no one is trying to share anything, especially with the less fortunate. There's not enough to share.
But that's the problem, Eugene. You see, we have to care, and this is fundamentally my problem. And I've seen this with the corporates when you want to be the only daki around the table, and you shut the door as soon as you come in, or you swallow the key. That is the problem.
You went far.
That is the problem.
Right?
We swallow the key. And this is the problem. People want to celebrate being the only dagi around the table. But let me finish because he was managing me. I'm gonna manage him. All right? Guys, we need to say what are the right things to do for generations to come. You have to be willing to plant a tree, the shade of which you may never ever enjoy. That's the problem. So I'm not going to answer the question about the ministers. I can tell you this, so one day South Africans are going to be illegal immigrants in Zimbabwe. Yes, I'll tell you why. I was in Zimbabwe, right? I was in Zimbabwe and things have gone so bad there. The vultures are gone. The ones that seek to strip everything.
They're waiting for
the people who are there. The people who are there are starting to reap. No, let me tell you.
Illegal immigrants
The
in Zim,
people who are there, because the vultures are gone, the people who are there are starting to rebuild. Mark my words.
But let's
5 to
Without
10
a democracy,
years.
though,
No.
do they even have
5 to 10 years from now, we are going to talk about how do we find. The reason I'm saying this is, guys,
disagree
there
with
are
you,
certain things we can keep on kicking down the road. in the name of the economy and avoid tough conversation on land, on transformation and all of that for expediency, they will catch up with us
I agree
at
with
some
you, Jan.
point.
I agree with you, and let's have those hard discussions. And
They will catch up with
people
us.
are now in the room.
Yeah.
But to go back to our more immediate situation of where are the areas, what's the low-hanging fruit?
Yeah.
Well, I think that the most cruel joke that the ANC have played on South Africa for the last 20 years is we've had 3 successive long-term ministers of trade and industry that hated trade and hated industry. Ibrahim Patel, Rob Davies, Alec Irwin. You couldn't find the 3 more hardened Marxists who hated trade and industry, by definition. And they did everything they could do to stifle trade and industry in this country. Pravin Gordhan at Public, those kind of guys. Now get those guys who are controlling key parts of the country's systems.
Ability to make money.
Ability to operate, to make money for big companies and small companies. I agree with you that some of the portfolios, for example, finance, ANC has always done a brilliant job, absolutely brilliant job at the managing no money. They're the best in the world. That's like a poor person managing their budget. They've done a great job. But take policing away from them because they just can't do it. So it's not so obvious as to which are the portfolios, but they're there and they're low-hanging fruit.
Small business, bro. That portfolio, I just want to say and that portfolio has done nothing for small business. Yeah. And if it has done something for you, and if you can literally in the comments tell us what the small business department has done for you, I promise you, mate. There's never nothing.
Yeah. If I'm the man, and I'll refer to this a lot, because I'm trying to see it from the common person's eyes.
Sure.
I see the GNU. I see a lot of conflicts, a lot of policy positions that clash. How do the guys then manage those compromises? Who compromises when it comes to BEE? When it comes to things like affirmative actions? When it comes to...
Don't worry.
Nothing's going on.
These things will be solved by salaries. Don't worry. You know when I knew that these people are all liars, these politicians, is when I saw them in Parliament.
Yeah.
Or at the ICC. They were all smiles, hugging, high-fiving. I was like, so this thing was a nationwide Nasispani. These people are employed, my man. You understand from last week, these people are employed. They have a salary guaranteed. They are employed. So they will talk. They will meet there in the urinals. They will meet at the water coolers. They will eat at each other's houses when we are not watching that feed from Parliament. Don't worry about these policy positions that they are taking. They will talk. They will become friends. If there's one thing that brings people together is when they are eating. Eating literally and figuratively. People love to eat. The hungry ones are the ones who are going to be fighting. The ones who are eating are going to be and I can tell you now, that room, that house is going to be full of people that are eating. Some for the first time, some for a long time. But they're all going to find each other. So don't worry.
So just to answer your question, I didn't
answer that question.
No, I'm jumping in. So I think that South Africans are very stuck on ideology, and I think it's very easy for people to create the fractious relationships amongst voters using ideology. Ideology, we've agreed as South Africans, as to speaking to Jan, there's a huge pact that says it's left and it's center and left. It's clear. That's where South Africa generally is. So now we've got to figure out how do we get on the ground and make things happen. So if the biggest thing was that the ANC felt unaccountable to people, it felt like they could do whatever they wanted. Because when things would change, they would change and they would all vote together. Now the ANC chief whips, the DA chief whips, the PA chief whips, they've got jobs. They must go whip up their votes for policies and simple. They literally have, this is the first time the guys have had to work. The first time a chief whip in Parliament, caucus, has to work. Like dog, we've got something that's coming in 3 months that has to do with this and this bill. You've got to try and go get votes. That's literally what you've got to do. That's your job. So suddenly, you've got to start having discussions outside of your echo chambers.
Yes.
This is what's going to help South Africa. Everybody needs to be involved. I am saddened by MK for saying we won't go, won't whatever. I heard that they might go, they might not go to Parliament. It's tricky, that thing. Shai work from home. But what we need to understand that everybody who's been voted for and got a seat in Parliament, you have to be part of the solution. They can no longer be backbenchers. And for the longest time, a lot of people were saying that what actually happened is that NC has lost a lot of backbenchers. People who are just chilling there doing forward.
Occupying space.
Now, you've got other people that can start to push things, that can start to get into those subcommittees and committees and start to push in the right direction. Guys, this thing is going to need every board, I'm telling you.
Yeah, but I always hear people saying the cabinet needs to be stripped down a little bit. I'm like, there was a reason why there were deputy ministers in the first place. If at some point you're going to end up with the government of national unity as it was foresawn all those many years ago, you're going to need someone from another party to look at what you are doing wrong. Yes. And also, South Africans have gotten into this mentality of liking to criticize the ANC. Now they're going to have to learn to criticize someone else. Now you're going to have to remember leaders of other parties' names.
True. Speaking of...
Remember?
It's like that thing I said to Angu, but TNC up more, 2016.
Yeah, we're long gone there. Yeah. They're like, oh, Kanja, who's now? Like, good.
Well, like, what does it mean for opposition politics? The GNU, what does it mean for opposition politics? Because like you said, the longest time everybody was saying...
Get in work, bro.
Yeah, it's going to work.
If you get 3 portfolios. So like, for instance, now, we know, I don't know what other splits that they did, but in KZN, I know ETA, petty finance. So if the finances...
And public works,
in the public works. So if things are not being built and the money in KZN starts to run out, it's clear.
Yeah.
It's clear, Chief.
And then nobody's going to protect that person not doing their job, because now it goes to a vote. And
but that guy didn't wear.
Because for the longest time, it's been about the person who can easily become anonymous.
Yes.
Now it's going to become about the party with a known person in it. You understand what I'm saying? So usually you'd say, who's the minister, who's the MEC of finance in KwaZulu-Natal? Yeah. We'll all be here going, we don't know. Yeah. But now we'll know the party that's running the portfolio. So then we'll identify. South Africans have been lazy in knowing who's in charge of what in this country. Before, we used to know who all the ministers were. Now, ask someone now and ask them who the ministers are. Yeah. That's why I'm saying that at the end of the day, with these elections, it ended up becoming about...
We used to know the horses that go to the Durban July.
Exactly.
A lot of things have changed.
But look at how our attention span has gotten so small that these elections, we had to rely on just knowing the leaders. Forget the policies. Right? We had to know just the leader and the policies. When I asked people what the manifesto was of a party, they were like, no, you're going too far.
No, so I think we gained something in this outcomes. We lost something. You know, I think every party in South Africa has their place. Right? So this is why I was saying earlier that I'm not thinking about this as every party, the leader of it must be president. That's why I don't struggle with the idea of EFF growing. All I know is I don't think with their current approach, they need to be running the country, but they can still grow.
Yeah, that's true.
Similarly, I think DA has done a very good job of upping the game when it comes to opposition. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are some, the current mayor of Cape Town, I don't know the guy, Gordon Lewis, I don't know him personally, but he was just, when he was in parliament, you just see that this is the guy who takes his job seriously and prepares and all of that. So, DA upped the game on opposition.
Right.
Do I want them in government? No, for different reasons. EFF upped the game on making politics accessible to an average man. You know, like watching what happens in parliament. Yes, some of it were chaos and all of that. So I think, just like in soccer, there's a goalkeeper, there's a Messi, there's a whatever, there's whatever. Everyone has their role. So to your question, it will be interesting who steps in to be the watchdog, because DA did a fairly good job of playing that opposition. The main opposition now is MK, if we go by numbers.
But maybe if the neighborhood is safe, we don't need a watchdog.
No, you always need a watchdog.
You can't leave people to their own devices.
You always need a watchdog. Absolutely.
So who's going to be the watchdog now?
But that's the problem. So because
the watchdogs are inside the government.
Listen, these people are going to split stuff. Trust me.
Yes.
You need a watchdog. You need someone saying, I am watching you guys. This friendship you're doing. Right? And that's the problem. That's why I'm saying we lost something.
Angu, your guy was supposed to be the watchdog, and he said, "We're not going there." The one that I won't mention.
Guys, imali yakiwa globally.
Absolutely.
I want people to understand. Imali yakiwa globally.
Yes.
But umsebenzi mawenzeke.
Yeah.
There's not a single project in the entire world that I know of, and maybe you can let me know, where it has been on time and on budget that has been run by government. In the world, maybe let's take out China because it's a special case. Iyakiwa imali kaRhulumente, but umsebenzi mawenzeke amadoda.
Absolutely.
Let the road must be built and it must be of good quality. This is the thing. We have lived in an environment for so long where the money is chowed and the guy never even showed up on site. This is where we've come from. So these things must change. In order to build this economy, we need to start building the roads.
Absolutely.
So all the other parties, because I really think... Hold on. No, you know what? I really think... No, hold on. I think, first, our balance is just too crowded, right? And because we can see now, it doesn't need 50 parties to get the country to work and run. You know what I mean? It may be undemocratic, but personally, I feel like there needs to be some rule or some law that will make away with all these other small guys, and we have main people. Like, what would be the ideal future for the guys who didn't make it then? Your rises of this world, because I don't get why a lot of parties don't even turn into like social movements or NGOs. Why do they need to want to fight for a seat in parliament?
So this is the
What's the
issue,
future
right?
for
So
them?
we South Africans are also terrible at accounting for time, right? So the independence of America happened in 1776, right? So when people say, I want to compare the two parties in America with the many parties in South Africa, it's not a comparison. We are a young democracy and there will be consolidation at some point.
As we go,
It will happen. Already this outcome of this results is driving some form of consolidation, whatever. Natural selection will take its course.
Okay.
Right? So what I'm hoping for is the small parties that are in parliament, some of them start to own up this opposition thing. And start to really be the watchdog,
vote and push the caucus.
because I don't think that's going to come from the
eating.
MK.
They're all eating, guys.
You know, so someone is gonna have to jump in. I'm really hopeful, like someone like a Maimani, someone like a Songezo, someone like Gayton is gone because he's he's part of the bridegrooms.
But I do think what you are going to see is real accountability, and I think that's going to come through at the polls. If a party now who's in that government of national unity is not up to scratch, they're going to get smashed. First, they're going to get kicked out of the government of national unity, and then I think their voters are going to.
We've literally entered an episode of Real Life Survivor. People are going to get along, and that's what's going to frustrate us. Because what they decide there is what they will think is good for the rest of us. Because we got them here. We didn't want to be decisive about who we wanted to lead this country.
But
we ordered this menu. And now it's being served. And they're going to get there. I can tell you now, I've seen it happening with just normal guys who are looking for a job, and all of a sudden they work somewhere. And like, MacG, what happened to They're like, no, not now. I'll tell you when it's time. It's going to be 5 years of this.
With Phalaphala, it's already happening.
It's exactly going to happen.
They're going to protect.
Yeah, people are going to eat. So I can tell you now, people are going to be friends. They're going to have each other's WhatsApp numbers. They're going to be going to each other's houses. They're going to know each other's kids' birthday. They're not going to fight in parliament.
They're going to go to Ronaldo Khoza's.
And you see, Musa is not going to be the only loud guy. He's also going to start feeling like he's going crazy.
What's most likely going to happen with the Phalaphala issue? I think everybody...
It's close. That thing's close. Yeah.
Remember that Edgar's account you had?
It's gone.
Remember that Edgar's account you had, and then they were calling you all the time. Then one day they stopped calling you.
It's gone.
Did you ask what happened?
And then who then's going to ask guys who are making noise about it, such as the DA, who was saying they wanted justice for that?
We're working.
Small issue, big country.
Exactly.
Small issue, big country.
Yeah, we're big.
The best way to describe it, if you ask me, is if you compare, say, the arms deal with state capture. When the arms deal came out and the country was growing at 5% and everybody was happy, we were happy for that thing just to get...
this thing, surplus.
Bigger fish to catch.
We're making more money than we're
making money. Everything's fine. So that, but state capture, when that came along, we were...
The Government of National Unity is, if you remember the cartoon Captain Planet,
Yeah.
They all have a united enemy now. They're gonna make everyone here is gonna make sure that this arms deal prosecution happens. Everyone here it's all hands on deck now. There's one person who declared himself an enemy to progress, and all of them are gonna come together and go, we need to deal with this enemy. If it takes us 5 years, we're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Because if all of them can report to their constituency that the biggest justice case that this country has ever seen, next to sending people that were involved in apartheid to prison, it's gonna be this one.
Yeah.
But
All
then,
of them are gonna say, we're going
so
here.
The thing for me is, I don't know how true this stats is. So if you earn anything more than 10,000 in South Africa, you are part of the top 20% of earners.
Yeah, it's quite ridiculous.
Imagine.
Right? If you earn anything like that, 40,000, you are in the top 5%. Right? The reason I'm mentioning those stats is these conversations could easily be echo chamber, like we are finishing each other's sentence. Because, it's like, you start a line, I finish your line. Right? Because, guys, we are a minority. This conversation we are having here is relevant to a very small population. Right? MacG used to talk about two economies. There is the rest of society out there that cannot even relate to this conversation, right? And we need to worry about how would those react. Because if voting was based on the people here, right, maybe this outcome would make sense, right? But there is a constituency somewhere that gave more than 2 million, or what is the number for the MK voters?
2.2.
Right? What are they worried about? What is driving them? For me, I'll be keen to hear that voice, because that voice is the majority voice. And that voice, we need to hear how they make sense of all of this. Because those are the people who vote.
Okay, go.
No,
But did they come out and vote? Because we
would have
What do you
gotten.
mean?
I feel like it's more of the middle class that came out to vote.
You just said the taxpayers, there's about
A lot of
6-7 million. Right.
But
who's the rest of the people who voted?
How many? 25 million people registered to vote?
Yeah, only
16 showed up.
16 million.
16 showed up, ne?
27
16
registered.
million.
27 registered.
27, which was the
27
record.
16 showed up.
But
ne?
also the worst record was that the turnout was 58.
Guys, we need
That's
to
an even worse record.
Yeah, so where
so
were
we
they?
problems of big society.
Yes, and
That's what we need. And it's
100%.
not going to be trickled down.
No. We have to get in
needs
front of the things.
intervention.
Yeah, we need to get in front of the things like
We have
land.
to.
The land conversation's got to
We
be
need
fixed.
to have it.
It's got to be fixed.
Absolutely.
Because there are things that are holding us back and are mentally blocking us from seeing what could possibly happen. And we
We
must
solved it in 15 minutes on the show.
Do you hear that?
We can kick the can down the
solved
road,
that
how we
already.
like solve. There's going to be tough conversations.
Yes,
we
and they
need
must
to
be
have.
tough.
There must be.
So are we willing to ignore the rating agencies and the
They're already bumping us up, mate.
No, when we address the land issue.
Because
they're bumping
they are
us up
finishing
because
our
of honeymoon
sentence.
phase.
Maybe here's the thing. He didn't watch our
You
podcast.
didn't watch our podcast,
So this
eh?
thing is simple. The land thing cannot be a blanket approach. It's got to be what land is economically viable in order for it to make sense. So when you talk about a piece of land that has no possibility of economic value, then that's stupid. We've got to be saying agricultural land or land that can be made agricultural and invested in, and we get people that want to work the land, right? Because a lot of the land question will say, we've got to then move people to other areas of the country or ask those people there to say, are you willing to do this thing in that particular area? This is the conversation we're not having. And that's why we must get ahead of it before it becomes untenable for us to even have the conversation, because the people are pissed.
Yeah.
A student once said to me when I said, let's talk about this thing about land. He said, no, how about I first get the land and then you can talk about what I want to do with it? So we keep on introducing these conditions, right?
Yeah.
I go hiking somewhere up Magaliesberg, right? That is a land, nothing happens there. You pay the owner $500 to go and hike there,
Yeah.
right? Where is the conversation about productive use of land?
Yeah.
So let's stop introducing all of these conversations and say this is a resource that is shared by not only by this generation, but by future generations, right? What are we going to do with it so that we measure people on the use of land and not just hogging the
But
land?
do we think
Yeah,
that
yes.
It's a very solvable problem. If the people around the table wanted to solve the problem, it's a very solvable problem.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that by fighting, we're not going to get to the solution because then everybody says, well, I'm walking out of the room and everyone's swearing.
Property rights and land are two different things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No,
We must make this clear for people.
Their distinction is
Property
important.
rights and land are two different things.
Yeah.
Because you've got a lot more black people owning property as the years go by.
Yes.
So we must make it clear that that's when we're not saying we're taking away your wealth that you've created over your generation, over the past 20 years.
Yeah.
We've got to focus on the land that can be productive and can start allowing South Africa to make more than enough food and to sell things. That's what we've got to focus on.
But even more simply, the government has never opened the books to show us how much they've spent on land restitution and how many people have gotten the land and how many title deeds have been distributed.
So they do have those. They do.
Where are they?
They do, but they're not. This is again another thing with the previous gov, because the new gov, this one.
It's only 3 hours old.
That was the old administration. I don't know those guys.
Why do you spend so much money on inauguration of the same guy? You see, this is some of the
They should
things
have
I don't
literally
get.
done that thing.
We just called you and said,
Wait.
I mean, I'm a big fan of pom-pom ceremony. Please calm down, guys.
he had his pom-pom
So we've
ceremony.
got-
Where does he want another one?
We've got to have a
Because I
better
want it.
conversation when it comes to the land thing, because it can unlock so much more.
Yeah.
And
Hold on, let him finish. Let him
No, for the
finish.
benefit of the viewers.
Yeah.
Let him finish.
No, he must tell us where those stats are so that he can get to that.
Oh no,
part.
just go to the Department of Land and
they're there.
Agriculture.
You can search
They
for
have
it.
a report, right? And they do it almost, they do it in conjunction with CSIR and Stats SA. They've got a report that comes out. That, in fact, we're using that report as the main report. That's why you find that the previous administration would tell you that land ownership is growing in the country to about almost 30%, between 28 and 30%, in terms of black indigenous black people.
Okay.
There is a study that happens all the time, and Stats South Africa and CSIR are very credible institutions. I want to make this clear. In fact, the other African countries don't have institutions that match data-driven collation and analysis like what we have in South Africa. That's why we're able to understand fully what the issue is.
Right.
So people can go to the land, the last land report. It's very clear. It tells you how much government owns, how much white people own, how much Indian people own, how much black people own. So it exists.
Right.
What we then need to figure out is how much money to make the land viable is being dispersed, because IDC, Land Bank, and all of these things. And who is getting the money? Because having land for the sake of land is nothing. Because you'll just sit there and look at it. Because for a long time, even though the Mia family owned Waterfall, there was nothing happening on Waterfall for the longest time. If you've been in Joburg for a long time, you know that there was nothing there. Until Attack and all of those other property developers said, Ndwanas, we think we can do something here.
Yeah.
Then the land became economically viable. So we've got to figure out and say, where is the money to make the land economically viable coming from, going to, and who is getting it and what are they doing with it? That's the report we don't have.
So is it the fact that people are not asking the right questions?
Yes, we're not
Or
asking
is the
them.
information
There's
not
another part
really
to this,
available?
and it goes back
Yeah,
to one
go
of the
ahead.
things you were saying earlier. We spent a lot of time talking about politicians and cabinet ministers and all of that kind of thing. But our bureaucrats have been terrible, right? So something like land, for example, and even restitution, there's enough. If they just did the easy stuff now, the picture would start looking very different. But you can't get a bloody deed, you can't get a this, you can't get a that. Stuff that should happen in 24 hours.
So what are the easy stuff?
No, the easy stuff is land where people should have title deeds, give them title deeds.
Immediately.
And get it done.
Immediately.
But get it done. You know, I was watching something quite interesting. Overseas, especially like in Europe, where they've got lots of coalitions and governments that are not...
Cut and paste.
It takes them sometimes up to a year to negotiate that deal. This guy interviewed Cyril Ramaphosa. He said, no, you'll get it done within 2 weeks. We got it done in 2 weeks. Why? Because he felt it was important enough to get it done.
Yeah.
Well, now the time has come. It's important enough to do those.
And work in those 2 week windows.
Work with speed. Let those bureaucrats do what they have to do. 2 weeks to solve this problem in this
sector,
area.
this region.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so just to wrap up, to round up,
We want more.
just to round up. I'm being told by the producer. So, next 5 years, what should have been achieved by the current a government of national unity, for it to succeed, what are the main things that should be attacked in order of urgency?
We've got to grow the economy at 2 to 3% as a start, right? 2 to 3%. We've got to have a concerted trade and economic plan that is going to involve foreign direct investment into the country, into key sectors that can grow our economy, like, for instance, oil and gas that needs exploration. We need to stop fighting over the simple things, right? And then we've got to fix Transnet.
Yeah, and then
Mike?
efficiencies where we need them, the areas that we've just spoken about, so cut red tape for business, understand the value of business and value it, because we don't in South Africa. Stop fighting over it. That shop that's on the corner is doing a valuable job for the everybody concerned. Let's let the country give them support. And then, most importantly, I know this sounds a little bit sort of hopeful, but let's stop having these stupid little fights. The stupid little fights. Let's get that over with and understand that South Africa is one country out of 200, and we're all in it together. And this place has got to work for all of us. And we'll soon see that as to how the country is behaving, how people are behaving, and the conversations we're having. I'm very hopeful.
Yeah. For me, it's collaboration and cooperation. South Africans ask for this. They want the government to reflect how they live in their suburbs, how they live in their estates. They want order. They want things to run efficiently. And basically, they want whatever interest that they have to be protected. Whether you agree with them or not, but they want what's happening in their little yard inside this big complex to be protected and to stay the same. And secondly, the confidence for small businesses to thrive in this country. We just need to be told that we're doing the right thing, a pat on the back, so we can go out there and employ more people. Thirdly, an investment in arts and culture. We need to export our arts. We need to export our culture. We need to make ourselves attractive and proud of ourselves before we can just go out there and become consumers and buying music from overseas, and clothes from overseas, and cars from overseas. The trickle-down effect of that, not of us not having our own confidence and our self-esteem being low in this country, is reflected in how we spend our money. So I wish those three things could change so they can reflect the way we live our daily lives. Because it's living in a bubble thing and acting like when we're inside the complex, we're championing for the people that live in the township. But when we're in the township, we can't wait to go back to our suburbs. Must end. We must all be realistic about where we live.
Facts.
Jan?
Yeah, so we cover this quite a lot on our platform, citizens.org. So there's quite a lot of details there. But in terms of where we are, my wish is this, so may we continue to ask the questions, whether we call them small fights, big fights. We need to have the difficult conversation. South Africa likes buying themselves time. We are like a cat, and I don't know if we are on life number 8 or life number 9. There are certain things that at some point we are going to have to confront. This kumbaya of let's wait for the Springboks to do this and all of that is not going to work. We can't keep on. But there are certain things that are immediate. The guys have already touched on. SME support is very important. Government need to go and drive. We can employ more people, even in government, by cutting out, if you're buying a loaf of bread for 200 Rand or 100 Rand on all of that, you can create capacity that still does the basics. Government need the basic machinery to run services. You can create jobs from that. I spoke about SMEs. There are some big ones like education that there are no shortcuts on. Infrastructure, the ports, the rail, and all of that. Those things have to work. But those things will give us short-term benefits. May we not lose the opportunity by yet again not tackling the difficult conversations.
Sorry, I have to add one thing.
Go ahead.
Most importantly, I think, is that we need to get to peace with each other, that we actually want to make the country. Go to those big businesses, put pressure on them, as has been done where they've go help Eskom, go help Transnet, wherever. Let's all get to work. Everybody get to work and feel that your work is being valued by the country.
And it's worthwhile. And that's why one of the biggest things that's being spoken about, or maybe not being spoken about, is that one of the reasons why ESCOM is working is because they called the old bullies back.
They did.
They called the old bullies back. The old bullies who were there when they installed that equipment, they're back. And they're saying, no, actually, you don't press this button, you press that one. That's what we need. That's what we need. We need the lights on.
That's it, man. We need the lights on. We need the country working for everyone. You know, people need to work. I feel like when Mike said we need to, I forgot your words that you use, but pretty much not have tension amongst one another. That only happens when everybody is getting something when they go back home. They've got the lights on, everybody's working. It's like in that neighborhood where you said you want to keep the status quo, but that builds resentment. If I'm driving, the next person is not. If I've got bread, the next guy does not. You know, and for us as a whole, as a country, we just need to be to have the dignity and the pride of having work, employment, and that's how you build on a country.
Enjoy America, Saul. When you come back, I want you to say, when I was in America.
You know me for the longest time.
I understand the conversation is always heavily limited and when it comes to growth, but this country will grow and change from the middle class. It will not change any other way. And that's why maybe I'm adding on to what Eugene is saying. The middle class is where the growth opportunity for this country comes in. Get people from the lower class, as many as we can, into the middle class. Fortify the position of the people there. Get more taxpayers out of the country. And let's start moving some of the top cream of the middle class into the other layers. Because we've got to move people up, but we can't move everyone up. And unfortunately, we have the extreme conversation of thinking that we can change things by moving people only from here into here. We've got to fortify these people that are already paying taxes, economically active, high productivity workers. We've got to really appreciate them more. And we've got to bring the people who are in the diaspora of South Africa, who are out there in the diaspora, who are South African, to come back home and help us fix.
Brilliant stuff. Well said. We'll close it at that. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your time, for your input and your opinions. Thank you for availing yourself. Appreciate it, yeah? Nzwile, we're going to America. Got some podcasts, announcements coming up, guys. Tomorrow is Friday. The podcast is offered to the US. Do anticipate some amazing content that we'll be shooting in and around LA, around the event. All sorts of parties we'll be attending, and hopefully some A-listers we'll be talking to and catching up with. What?
Didi. Is he invited? Not invited.
I'm asking. Hey, guys, there's no Didi. Please, podcast. That's the shit. Yes. Podcast and chill.
Welcome to Black Excellence. Do not fear, for if you do, just sip on some grandeur. And if you still do, ask ourselves, what would Mapapunzi do? Parama chila, itlesha lefiki. Ungoyigi, even if when they ask you, how sabiini, do not fear. For if you do, just say, Anistivi. This is the medicine of censorship. This is the pill. Which one is that one? Podcast and chill.